Well, we got Cody Hofhine on the call. And Cody, this is kind of a thrill for me. I've known you for quite a while now through some of your training material and your podcast. But I want to just kick it off to you first, let you introduce yourself to those who may possibly not know who you are. But I actually don't believe that. But.
Oh, there's plenty that don't know who I am. I'm excited to be here first and foremost, Jack. Appreciate you having me on. A little bit about myself. If we go back a little bit, like I say, like 10 years, it was a beginning of the entrepreneur world, and it was a struggle. It was a challenge. Fast forward maybe to 2015, and it still continued to be a struggle challenge. I was doing insurance, selling like home and auto insurance. And so for those that are like listening to this and it's like, man, can I even get into real estate? Like, I'm struggling. I want you to know first and foremost, yes, I was struggling. I was living worse than paycheck to paycheck. And before I even got into real estate. So I want people to know up front, I'm just a human being, put my pants on one leg at a time. But ultimately, I am the founder of what's now called the Real Estate Freedom Formula. I'm a host on the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. And essentially, I coach students nationwide on the unique little strategy that's not so unique. Everyone knows it. It's wholesaling. So I just lead and guide people step by step to their first deal so that they can just get involved in wholesaling. And a lot of people choose wholesaling because it takes very little money. You don't have to be a realtor. You don't have to be an expert. And that's kind of in a nutshell. I don't know how far and deep you want me to go, or if this will expand throughout the conversation, but there you go.
No, that's a great start. I mean, I've been wanting to tackle the conversation of wholesaling on a deeper level. And you, I mean,
Perfect.
You're the perfect guest for that. Because I get a lot of people asking about wholesaling because like you said, that's where people want to start. That's like the holy grail when they're getting into real estate investing. Let's start at the very beginning. Like, what would you recommend people do if they're interested in wholesaling? What's like one of the first steps they should make?
So let's kind of break it down, I guess, even more granular than that. Wholesaling in general, guys, to just make this so simple that even like if you had your 10-year-old listen to us, that he would understand or she would understand what it is. So wholesaling is just the art, being a deal finder. So think of just being able to go out and find deals. So wholesaling is just finding deeply discounted properties. And a lot of people choose to just sell those contracts. When you put a home under contract, a lot of people just just sell that contract for a fee. That's your wholesale fee. But you can exit any way you want. Some people love knowing how to be a deal finder to find deeply discounted properties because they want to buy rentals for themselves, or they want to fix and flip their next property. But ultimately, the strategy I use and a lot of people go for is just learning how to find the deal. They're usually off market pretty dang close to 100% of them are always off market. You're going direct to the seller, and you're ultimately looking for some type of motivation or a distress situation, whether that's attached to the house or whether that's attached to the seller. So maybe it's a home that's been abandoned. Maybe it's a home that's had deferred maintenance and it needs a lot of repairs, a lot of fix up. Maybe it's a situation with the seller that they're going through divorce, or maybe they're behind on their taxes, or maybe they have to move in 2 weeks and a traditional sell with a realtor doesn't work. And so ultimately what I'm able to do is have my team now. But what I was doing from the get-go is I'd go out and meet with these individuals. I know how to find those individuals, find these distressed properties where I can then just go out there and see if I can solve problems. Ultimately, we're just problem solvers. A lot of this has nothing to do with real estate. And that sounds crazy because it's like, no, it's wholesaling real estate. But what's crazy is if you think about real estate and you make it about real estate, it's very hard to do. But if you can make it about just genuinely solving people's problems, the byproduct is you can get their property at a discount because you're able to add speed and convenience, and they're willing to give their price down or give you your price for lieu of speed and convenience, solving their problems.
Sure. So what would you say people should be doing then regarding just marketing and trying to find those opportunities? I think that's also another thing, like a point of entry that people kind of struggle with.
It is. And I think it's because most people will do it a little bit backwards. So it's having the end in mind. And I think about this in any way. So I know I've looked through a bunch of your podcasts, and a lot of them, I love the fact that it's talking about mindset. So we think about the end in mind. Think of of let's talk about even a Disney movie that's a classic. Let's talk about Alice in Wonderland. She gets to a fork in the road and she's like, I don't know where to go. And this cat, the Cheshire cat, pops up and says, she's like, hey, where should I go? And he's like, well, where do you want to go? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, then it doesn't matter which road you take, right? Most people run their business or their life that way. They just kind of go through life, but they don't really have the destination mapped out. Well, if you don't know the destination, how do you begin to map out this road to get there? And so with wholesaling, you got to already start with your end in mind. And that is, if you don't have much money, you don't plan on taking these homes down yourself to keep as a rental or take them down yourself so that you can do a fix and flip, but that your end game is to simply assign the contract or sell the contract to a cash buyer, well, then start there. Start building that cash buyers list. Make sure you have that all covered so that when you go out, because the easy work is the end game. It's just those cash buyers. The hard work is finding those deals. That's what's the art. That's what everyone is like, man, I'm willing to pay you top dollar if you can come across a deeply discounted property. So find the cash buyers, build cash buyers list. And I'd say if you're going to get started, start with about 150 cash buyers. Get them on your list. You can find them at real estate investor associations. You can find them through Craigslist. You can find them by just getting on Craigslist and finding people that are like renting out their homes and see if they want to add homes to their portfolio. You can get it through Facebook groups by saying, hey, is there any cash buyers in whatever state, city you're in? You'll see people be like, yes, yes, yes. Add them to your list. That's where you start. And then ultimately it's going to start leading to that next question, which would be marketing. Now that you have your cash buyers in place, what do I need to do so I can start bringing in leads? How do I start finding these deeply discounted properties? But does that already give you like your audience and you like a great understanding, or is there anything I could break down more for you?
No, that's like perfect. I mean, we've had people ask us like, I've heard a lot of trainers, when it comes to the real estate market, talk about you get the deal under contract and the buyers will come.
If you build it, they will come.
You build it, they will come. And I hear that time and time again, but I couldn't agree with you more. It is so much more important to establish a buyer's list first, because you have a very limited amount of time to do something with that contract. And if you don't have some buyers lined up and readily available, you might burn up any time you have with that property under contract to do something with it.
There's two big reasons behind it too, Jack, that's I think is interesting is now working with thousands of students nationwide, whenever I hear someone say, man, I had to cancel a contract. I just feel bad for them, but I'm like, like you're right there. And I'm like, what happened? Well, none of my cash buyers wanted it. And I'm like, okay, so did you put under contract at a high price? Sometimes that's the scenario. But most times it's like, I'm like, how many cash buyers do you have on your list? And they're like, well, I had 2. And I'm like, what happens is you start to think, oh man, I didn't do it right. I didn't put under contract. And now it makes you kind of hesitant. It makes you like not want to take action again the next day. Cause you're like, well, I did something wrong and I don't want to do that again. I mean, now this cash buyer, this seller's mad at me because I'm not going to be able to close on the property. And it starts to like work on your mindset and starts to like weaken you and start to make you fear and start to make you question, is this right for me? So that's one of the big things is when you do that, you set yourself up for those like mindset depreciation going on, right? Well, had they had a ton of cash buyers, it's not to say that they didn't have a deal. I've talked to many of them that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a deal. You just simply didn't have buyers, but they had to cancel. And so it's not that, it's like you say, it's not like if you build it, they will come. Could that happen? Yes. But the other bad scenario to that is if only one cash buyer wants it, that cash buyer is going to get it at their price. And really, instead of making $10,000, maybe you're only going to make $1,000 because you only had one cash buyer, and he's going to find out he's the only cash buyer interested. And so he's going to be like, well, I'm going to offer you this price. And you just have to take it. And so we call that becoming a cash buyer's employee. You want to be able to, if you're going to spend the hard time finding the deal, hopefully you're going to try and maximize how much profit you can make on this. And a lot of that has to do with how many cash buyers are on your list.
Right. So you mentioned like getting to your real estate meetup and even doing some advertisings on Craigslist or whatever to try to build up that cash buyers list.
Yeah.
Have you gone as far as doing like a marketing campaign, like buying a list?
Yes. So let's say your budget allows it, you can just simply go to a company called like ListSource. There's a bunch of different list companies out there, but essentially what you would do is you would go look up individuals in your zip codes, your areas that have full equity, like 100% equity. Those are your cash buyers. Now, not every one of those cash buyers are a fix and flipper, but if you can just go into, like, example, listsource.com, you'd be like, okay, here's your county, type in your city, and you start putting in these filters. And the main thing, the criteria that's going to separate a cash buyer from just a normal person living in a home is they bought it in the last 6 months and they bought it free and clear, meaning there's no mortgage in place. Those are a good list to know that that's a cash buyer. We used to mail to them and wait for them to respond, basically saying, hey, we noticed you bought a home free and clear. Do you want to be added and know about future deals that we're coming across in that same area? Now what we do is we just simply skip trace that list and we just call them directly and just say, hey, we noticed you purchased a home in 123 Main Street and we come across discounted properties at like 40, 50 cents on the dollar. Would you like to know about the next deal we come across? And a good chunk of them are like, yes, let me know about your next one. Because they typically are buying them probably from either other wholesalers or they're buying them from like an auction and they're paying too much, or they're buying them off the MLS and it's too high. So when they hear this 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar, they're like, yes, let me know about it.
Yeah. So for those who may not know, skip tracing is a service that will allow us to, you take that list, you send it, and they look up their person's phone number and sometimes even their email address. We even see some now will provide like social media content. I know that there's some real estate investors who are even using social media and Facebook Messenger and stuff to chat with some of these people. I haven't gone that far, but the skip tracing service to get a phone number can be pretty useful.
It can be simple and easy, right? But what's funny about what you just said is I just did a podcast episode, and the student, I was saying, how did you find this lead? He's like, well, I didn't have money to skip trace. So I went on Facebook and I found him and I messaged him, and it ended up leading to like a $40,000 deal. And I was like, what? Like, good job, man. He didn't give up. So if you can't afford doing the skip trace, don't let that stop you. You still got to move forward. You just got to get more creative. And that's an excellent way.
Yeah. No, one of the things that I've learned to do, and it's part of my process, is that instead of skip tracing, like especially individual numbers, because frankly, some of the people that we find are an older population, they still have landline phones.
Yeah.
So I'll check the white pages first.
Super smart. Super smart. I don't even know where I'd find that book now.
That's online too. So, but I found quite a few people that way. Just check the white pages and then give them a call, and usually just say, hey, I'm calling. I know this is completely out of the blue, but are you thinking about selling a house?
Completely brilliant. I love it. I love it.
So, let's say you do skip trace. What type of language, people sometimes get a little locked up, analysis paralysis regarding like what they should say. You kind of gave kind of a hint as to possibly, regarding the type of deals that you're finding, but is there just something quick that can be said to kind of hook them?
The best thing is to not overthink it. So I don't think there's any perfect verbiage. Yes, let me get to the verbiage here in 2 seconds. The main thing that I also would hit on this, Jack, is, gosh, we overthink things so many times. And when you haven't done it before, you start to pan out this like, what if they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about? Or what if someone tells me like, don't ever call me again? And here's what I want to tell to everyone listening to this. Over 90% of the time, these what ifs never even happen. They never even come to pass. And so just get out there and be willing to fail your way forward and do what I call massive imperfect action. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about having a perfect script or a perfect line, but just keep it simple. How would you talk if it was your dad or your mom and you said, Dad, hey, I noticed you bought 4 homes last year and now I'm coming across some discounted properties. Do you want to know about my next deal, Dad? I mean, just keep it simple like that. It should be as simple as, hey, Jack, notice you bought a home at 123 Main Street. My name's Cody. I come across discounted properties and they're usually like 50% off. And they're usually in that same area that you bought that home. Is this something you'd be interested in if I come across these to let you know about? I mean, that's it. You don't have to overthink it. And that's not even perfect. And sometimes you'll start getting in this little trend where you'll say something and it changes and you're like, ooh, I like that one better. And you just start using that over and over. And then you say something, and you're like, ooh, I like that one even better. But it's just simple. Hey, I just wanted to call you real quick because I find homes in that same area at a very big discount, usually like 40, 50 cents on the dollar. Would you like to know more about those deals when I come across them? And they're, yep, I would. Perfect. All I'd need is just a email address and a phone number, and then you just add them to your list. Because I usually blast out my deals through MailChimp or through a text blast so that it goes to everyone at the same time, but not like BCC or CC. It's like it's done in a way that no one knows they're on a thread, so that it's very professional. So not everyone's contact is being seen by everyone else.
Right. No, I really like that you've driven that home for as long as I've listened to you, is that imperfect action. And actually, I've actually found that people typically respond to something a little better if it doesn't sound scripted.
So true.
You get into this routine and you say the same thing over and over again. It kind of does start to sound that way.
Think if your podcast sounded perfect and you're like, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. We're going to re-record that. Mm-hmm. People would be like, man, this sounds too perfect. Like it sounds like our best performing marketing is actually when we fumble through our words and catch ourselves. So that's what's interesting is people want to see real time. They want to see that it's real. Some of the most highest performing, even for whether it's you're selling a product or coaching or you're talking about maybe other cash buyers, or you're talking to sellers and maybe you're just marketing. Let's use it this way. My acquisition manager, he always pulls up his cell phone whenever he's at a house and he gets a home under contract. He pulls up his cell phone. He says, hey guys, I was able to help Tim here. And the situation he's in, Tim, what was the big thing? And Tim's like, well, I was struggling to make the payments on this, and I inherited from mom. So guys, here's the thing. A lot of people don't know this, but we buy any condition a home, and you just do that. And it's very real. And it's a moving camera. It's not set on a nice tripod and it's holding perfect and it's in 4K, like very real time. Those are our highest performing marketing pieces, is when it's just real. People click on it. But when it's too perfect, we notice people don't click on it.
Mm-hmm. So, well, we established the buyer's list. Let's move into the bread and butter here. Now we got to find those sellers.
Yeah.
Have you found some strategies lately that seems to, we're still in this whole coronavirus thing. Yeah. I mean, I suppose we need to have that on our radar as well, but is there any marketing or anything that seems to be working better than others right now for you?
My two favorite is, first one is that does all the heavy lifting and it's not that expensive. And you can still be doing a 9-to-5 job, meaning you can do this part-time and not have to come home and throw a ton of more time into it, is direct mail. Now, direct mail for a time, because so many people were sending direct mail, there are some areas in the just United States that they saw a decrease in that response rate, in that conversion rate, but it was still converting. And so a lot of people kind of pulled out of direct mail. It's kind of like, it's not working like it used to do. And so they pulled out of direct mail. I stayed strong during this whole time. So I've been doing this since 2015, and we'll send out anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 direct mail pieces every single week. And we've been staying true to this ever since we began, and we still are very profitable. Very, very, very profitable. That's the first channel. So direct mail. And the reason I love it is it's so scalable. It doesn't require people. It's something that if I want to bump it up or bump it down, it's just a click of a mouse and then send it off to the mail house, and that's all they send out. It's very, very easy. It's very doable. But I love that it does all the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to physically pick up a phone and call people. You're just reaching out to them, and if they're interested, they're reaching back out to you. So that's my first one. Second one that we're really loving and we're really jazzed about for the last 2 years and has so much room for growth is just web in general. And so when I say web, there's 3 things behind web: PPC, SEO, and Facebook. And when all 3 of those are working together, we have seen huge results. The hard thing with web is, yes, it's going to cost more than direct mail. Yes, it's going to cost more than cold calling, but that's our biggest ROI right now. For Utah specific, for every dollar we spend, $6 comes back. And for Texas, our Texas market, for every dollar we spend, it's $3 back. And there's a couple things behind that. Every market kind of, I'd say, what's the word I'm looking for? They respond to it differently. That's the first thing. But secondly, our bigger team is here in Utah. So we're able to really stay up on those leads where we have a very small operation in Texas. But those two channels are my favorite. And web has so much room for growth. It does take time. It does take money. So it scares a lot of people because they're like, oh man, we have to pay this fee to be managed. And then on top of it, we still have to have ad spend. And it could be 2, 3, 4, 5. But I'll tell you, when you get to 6 months, that's like your sweet spot. You're going to get these onesie twosies along the way. But if you'll stick it out 6 months, that's when you start to see this momentum, this traction take place. And so those are the two favorite channels that I have right now.
Yeah. What I like especially about what you just said there is that people, we talked about it previously, looking down the road a little ways versus that initial cost, because that initial sticker price, let's frankly admit that it does scare some people away. It'll even prevent them from sending out that first mailing because they see that bill. But when you're talking about some of those numbers, let's use those online numbers, for example. If you're spending, if you think about spending $1 and getting 6 back, and you do that time and time again, why wouldn't you be doing it?
100%. I tell this to everyone, but because the cost up front so high, they can't ever see that. But if you said, hold on. If I told you, if you had to take $2,000 to a slot machine and you could put $2,000 into it and it was going to spit out $12,000, would you not figure a way to go find $2,000 from someone and sit at that slot machine all day long? Everyone would be like, yes, that's PPC right now. That's web right now. But so many people will hesitate because they're like, oh, I got to spend $2,000 in ad spend, and then I got to spend another $1,500 or $2,000 for someone to manage it for me. Like, oh. But what if you could just sit at that chair and throw in that, and 6 times return comes back? Would you not figure a way? Like, this is the survive and thrive. You want to thrive? Figure that way out. Like, don't look at what's going out. Look at what's coming in. If you can get past that initial shock, I just think if someone knew that someone was going to give you a 6 times return, let's say it's only Texas, 3 times return. What person wouldn't sit down at a slot machine, put $1 in, and every time you pull the thing, it gives you $3? I'd sit there all day long. I'd be like, cha-ching, $3. Put 1 in, $3. Cha-ching. Like, I do that all day long.
I think most of us would hopefully do that, but it's that initial blocker, right? It's that you can't see beyond that first bill.
Yeah.
But I actually think the online stuff is so important that all of my other marketing drives to the website or drives to the online marketing, because we've already known that, like direct mail, I don't know if you agree with this, but as far as I'm concerned, you're not going to catch a ton of your initial people on that first mailing. It's that persistent, consistent getting it in their mailbox, because sometimes it's going to take 7, 8 touches for somebody to make that initial step towards you. So even if that step is them hitting my website, I just want them to
get inside the web,
get them as many times as possible, and through that process as many times as quickly as possible.
So true. Because here's the thing, most sales experts would agree that it's between 5 and 12 touches before someone says, hey, I'm going to use this guy or I'm going to use this girl. So we have to be aware of that. But everything, like you said, is a touch. You send a direct mail piece out and they can either call you or visit your website, right? Simple. When they go to your website, that acts as a touch. If they call you, that acts as a touch. When you get done with the phone call and you send a text, you're like, hey, blah, 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 blah. You set up an appointment. Then you get done. You're like, an hour later, hey, Jack, I want to thank you so much for the time we're on the phone. I learned so much from you. I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. There's another touch. Before you go out on the appointment, hey, just want to let you know, Jack, remember today's Wednesday at 2:00. I'll see you then. That's another touch. So hopefully you're prepping and you're doing those 5, 6, 7, 8 touches before you even go on that appointment, so that all this rapport is being built beforehand. And you just simply walk in and they're like, I have to do business with you. There's something about you that I liked this whole entire time, the contact, the touch, everything that's been in place. You build that authority, you build that trust, and you are the one that will more times than none walk out with the contract.
Right. You know, I really like that you focused on how many, it's that constant communication. I can't tell you how many times we've managed to get a deal just because we're constantly in communication with the potential seller. You know, whether it's sending them a quick text, just saying, hey, quick reminder, Josh is going to swing by, take your look at your house this afternoon. See you then. You know, it's that constant regular communication, because as soon as the seller doesn't feel comfortable with the process, things start to fall apart.
100% true. 100% true. And that urgency, the speed of urgency, as much as the touch, it's that urgency. It's trying to get there as quick as possible as well. I think time kills all deals. I always talk about that. So time in between communication, time before you set the appointment. So it's like, oh yeah, I can meet in 2 weeks. Well, someone that's brand new would be like, okay, we'll meet in 2 weeks. Someone that's seasoned is going to be like, all right, guess what? I'm actually in the area today. Can I meet you at 3:30? And they go on the appointment. They get it. Time kills all deals. And so it's that sense of urgency. Here's a cool one that just barely worked out for us yesterday. We now have 3 acquisition managers here in our Utah team. And our newest one that's only been with us 2 months, they're at a lunch. There's all 3 of our acquisition managers and my business partner. They're sitting at a lunch celebrating one of them's birthday. And a web lead came in. So from the internet, PPC, filled out an application, and it's everything, all the why, like everything that would be like, oh man, that's a great lead. We got to go on it. They wanted to sell quick. It's in poor shape. Like they mentioned everything on this little web form. So one of the acquisition managers calls, no answer, sends a text, no response. The second acquisition manager calls, no answer, sends a text, no response. The third acquisition manager doesn't call, doesn't text. He finishes lunch and says, I'm going to drive over there. He drives over there. Why? Because the application is saying all the right words, like the condition, the why. It's already like, we got to do this. So here's what we learned from it. Urgency, urgency, urgency. We didn't wait. Everything would tell you you're justified. Like you've done everything you could. You tried calling him twice. You tried texting twice. You didn't hear back from him. So everything would say like, we're justified in saying we gave him a shot. We couldn't get it. No, he went on the appointment, our newest guy, and he puts the home under contract at $300,000, and he didn't know what he had. He's very new to this. He comes back and he tells us where it's at. And I'm like, gosh, that sounds like a great area. That's going to be a home run. It ends up being, it's going to be like $100,000 to $125,000 deal. And he didn't even know. But why did he get it? Because the sense of urgency. He saw the right questions on that web form and he said, boom, I'm getting out there. I'm not waiting for a phone call. I'm not waiting for a text. I'm just going to go out there and knock on the door. 2 hours later, he gets a contract.
That's awesome. You know, you said time can kill deals. Sometimes time can resurrect deals too.
Sure.
I've had, I can't tell you how many times now where we've gotten a wholesale deal because it wasn't a good fit at that time. But I just keep following up to just see if something has changed, you know?
So true. So true. And that's the key, right? Follow up. If someone's ready to go, I should say time can kill those deals, but there are people, a majority, vast majority, they're not ready right now. That doesn't mean forget about them, because 75% of all of our deals, if you said, Cody, I want to know July of 2018, how many deals came from on the spot? How many deals came from follow-up? It doesn't matter what month you tell me or what year. 75% to 80% of every one of our deals come from follow-up. And so, yeah, time in that way, like work those leads. So many times we're so worried about spending more money to get more leads in. And I tell you, there's more students or more people out there that I talk to that they're bringing in too much opportunity, and too much opportunity doesn't lead to more deals. It simply means less opportunity because they don't know what to do with all the opportunity handed to them. So just do very few leads a day. You only need anywhere from 3 to 5 leads a day. If that's all you got every single day, you're doing fine. You've got plenty of leads in your hand to be working. And like you said, time can help you in that way. And when you do follow up, don't make it about the deal. Don't make it about the home. Make it about something unique. Maybe, Jack, if you were a seller and you're like, hey, Cody, sorry, I can't talk today. My dog broke its hip. My follow-up wouldn't be, hey, Jack, I talked to you about your house the other day. You still looking to sell your home? My follow-up would be, hey, Jack, last time I called, for whatever reason, I just started thinking about you. You said your dog broke its hip, and I wanted to see how are things going? How's your dog doing? Oh, well, they end up doing surgery, this. Gosh, for whatever reason, it's like I saw this guy walking a dog down the street, and I was like, I've got to call Jack because Jack had a dog that broke his hip.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That just kind of leads, when I'm talking to sellers, I'm 5-10 minutes into the conversation before we even start talking about the house.
Yeah. We have a minimum rule, just so you know. Our rule is 30 minutes. You cannot talk about the house for 30 minutes. We're all about rapport, slow them down. How many times have you gone into a house and the seller just wants to speed you through? Like, okay, let me show you the bathroom. Okay, let me show you the kitchen. We slow them down. We'll start walking up the stairs and we'll be like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful picture. Where's that taken at? And we just slow them down. Oh, we love Moab too. That's one of our favorite places. I love that red rock and that arch. In fact, I love it so much that that's the license plate I picked for my Utah plates. And man, that's beautiful. So when did you go down to Moab? And we slow them down. Yeah. And then they say, well, I went down there because my mom, that was her last year before she died. We don't say, okay, let's go look at the bathroom. It's like, oh, really? You lost your mom just last year? How's that been? And we slow them down. So
that's a great point. Slowing it down, because a lot of people call in just to look for a number.
That's right.
More times than not, they're not a good fit if they're just looking 100%. For a number. And in fact, that kind of leads me to talking a little bit about that. Getting through that hurdle and starting to feel comfortable talking to people or sellers for that first time.
Yeah.
Those people that call in, I actually see those as practice for a lot of people, because it's a great opportunity. I still call those back, even though I know where this conversation is going to go. And heck, I usually call back those people that call and tell me, F off.
Go pound sand.
Go pound sand. You can stop, I'll call those people back. And more times than not, you'd be surprised that half the time it's not a good fit for them. But more times than not, I'll run into somebody who will say, I'm not selling, but my neighbor is.
Yeah, that's right. Even the ones that tell you to pound sand, I like to make friends out of them, not enemies. Oh my gosh, Jack, I know this caught you at a bad time. I appreciate you being bold enough to call me out, and that doesn't offend me one bit. Thank you for calling me. So it sounds like it's not a good fit. Do you know anyone else in your neighborhood looking to sell their home at this time? Every conversation can lead to something else.
Yeah. And I've even called and just apologized. I'm sorry that caused such an offense. I didn't mean to cause that type of turmoil.
Yep. Yeah. But then I asked, hey, what's your name so I can remove from your list? Well, you have it, so just remove it. I'm like, if I don't have it, you're going to get another mail piece in 6 weeks.
Yep. So more times than not, those end up turning into something.
That's right.
And they're great exercise to talk to somebody. Once you can start talking and turning those type of people around, you can talk to almost anyone.
We've gotten deals from those people. Like, that's why I share that. Yes, they're not interested, but they may know someone that's interested. So I think that's the thing is, are you willing to get past your fear, call even the one that tells you to pound sand or F off, and be like, Jack, I'm so sorry, man. I know this must have frustrated you. I could hear it in the tone of your voice, and I'd love to remove you from your list to fulfill that. It sounds like you're not interested. Do you know of anyone else in your neighborhood that could use selling their home at this time? Oh yeah, sure. Well, Jim down the street.
Yep. And sometimes just them finding out that I'm a real person, that usually turns things around too.
So true. That's the thing, is they actually feel bad. How many times do you do it and you kill them with kindness, and then they're like, Jack, I'm so sorry. I should have never used that language, man. Have a good day.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so you're calling these people for the first time. They're potential sellers. Could you give somebody a quick, like, one line to, like, how do they start things off? And
yeah. In fact, Jack, at the end, unless you want me to tell them what they can do, they can also get a free script from me. I'd be glad to share the whole script. They can have it free of charge. You're basically at the beginning, you have to just get to what's really important. And it's not the house, and it's not how many beds and baths. It's not what's been fixed up. It's the why. Why are we selling the house? Like, why would you call me on a 37-cent postcard? We all know 50 real estate agents. Every one of us know 50 realtors. Some of us have 20 best friends that are real estate agents. So why did you not call your best friends? Like, why did you call on a 30-cent postcard? Now, I don't ask it that way. So what I'll do is I'll just simply talk to them. So how I'd begin it is I'd just be like, hey, I know this might be out of blue. Now, if this is cold calling them, it'd be, I know it's out of blue, but would you ever consider an offer at your home at 123 Main Street? And if they say yes, I always like to also hold back. And it's not like a power play, but it is, I want to see how interested they are. And so I love this question because you can start to see interest right out of the gate. And that is, it sounds like I caught you in the middle of something, Jack. And if Jack says, no, like right now is a good time, that's also already a little bit level of motivation. Like, oh man, I'm not bugging them. I called them out of the blue and they're already willing to talk to me. There could be some motivation there. If they're like, yeah, to be honest, I don't have time, and I don't see if I'll ever have time, that's also a sign that they're probably not going to sell their home too. And then I'll go right to tell me a little bit about the house. And that's just because it's the question I need to ask, so they know I'm calling about the house. But then my favorite question is, man, this looks like a nice home. Why are you even considering selling it? Act confused. You need to know the why. I don't care how many square feet. I don't care how many beds and baths. I want to know why you called me on a 37-cent postcard. And that's my favorite question. It looks like a nice home. Why are you considering selling it? Well, we want to move over to the next this. Well, I don't know if do you guys listen to Chris Voss? Never Split the Difference. One of my favorite books. We're a student of that book and his handbook, and we're actually part of his Black Swan training group. And he always talks about how when you ask these questions, you just mirror them. So like, oh, we want to move to the next city over. Oh, move to the next city over. And then just sit there. And then they start elaborating. Oh yeah, so we're moving next city over because my parents live there. Oh, okay, your parents live there. And then just sit there. All you got to do is repeat the last 3, 4, 5 words, period, the end. And then just sit there. And they just keep elaborating on. And you'll see this work instantly. Try it today. And you'll see that they're like, yeah. And then like right now we'll be moving in with my parents while and they kind of stop for a minute. And you're like, ooh, this went from a motivation 2 to a motivation 6. They're moving in with their parents. And then I just start the conversation. You can ask them, oh my gosh, that's kind of fun. Do you like living with parents, or is this something like temporary? And you can start going through that route. Sometimes they don't want to go that route. So maybe I try to assume the best and let them tell me the rest. So if I asked you, Jack, how much money do you make? You'd be like, dude, none of your business. Because it's not the right way to ask it. But if I said, Jack, bro, every time I see you, you're driving a fantastic car. You look great. You must make like 500 grand a year. And maybe you'd come back and say, well, I wish that was the case. I actually make $250,000. Now, I don't know what you make, but what happens is when you assume the best, they come back and tell you the truth. They tell you the rest. So I always say that in the seller situation. Oh, you're probably living with your parents because you're having a home built for you. That's assuming the best. And then they're like, I wish it was that. We're actually moving with my parents because my husband lost his job. Motivation 5 to a motivation 8. Book the appointment.
Yeah. No, what's really something that I got to call out there is a lot of people, especially when they're doing this wholesaling thing for the first time, they feel like they have to convince somebody of something, where you're asking questions to allow them to come to their own conclusion.
Yeah. Too many sound like Charlie Brown's mom. It's like womp, 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 and no one remembers it. I don't know what Charlie Brown's mom ever said in any one of those cartoons. Same thing. Every one of your competition is saying, we buy it as is. We buy it with cash. There's no closing cost. There's no real estate fees. Everyone says that. And ultimately, when you say that, it's Charlie Brown. It's like womp, 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 womp. And then they don't even remember what you said. But if you said, gosh, it's just my home's in a bad shape right now. I don't try to sell my feature saying, oh my gosh, I can buy it as is. That's selling. What I do is, Jack, sounds like your home's in rough shape. Would it help if, and I always use if, I don't promise anything. Would it help if I could just buy it as is and you wouldn't have to fix it up? And then I let them say, oh my gosh, yes, that would be helpful. I don't sell my benefit. I ask if my benefit would be a solution. And then they sell themselves like, oh my gosh, I like you. Because if you can buy it as is, this thing's a train wreck.
Right. Well, this is going a lot longer than I planned. I warned you. So I want to make sure that you're still good here because I still have some more questions for you.
You fire away, my friend. This is how we serve your audience the best. So if you feel like there's some kind of value we can add, let's go.
Okay. So another question I get a lot is, well, how do you determine what you offer?
Yeah. That is a great question. And the easiest answer, and everyone hates this answer initially, but when they go out and do it, they realize where I'm coming from. Get it as low as possible. Here's why I say this.
I know you were going to say that.
If I can get 4 licensed appraisers and say, each one of you guys give me the price of my home. How many prices am I going to get on my home?
4.
And how many are going to be the same?
None.
0. And that's 4 licensed appraisers. So who am I to say what a home's worth? My goal is just get it as low as possible. And how do you do that? I use even Chris Voss training. He calls it the anchor price. And so when someone says, if I know like typical value of a home, let's say fixed up ARV, which is after repair value. So once it's all fixed up, what is it worth? Let's say it's worth $200,000. And they say, hey, I need 180 because it's got a little bit of problem to it. I don't know if I could do 180. But what if? Again, guys, if is making an offer without making an offer. What if I could do 100,000? And you should say something that literally punches you in the gut. Like, whoa, like this is going to be so low that they're going to be offended by this. If you don't feel that feeling, you didn't go low enough. You should never be like, well, I could probably do 175. Like weak. Get that baby down. Like 50 cents. Go down. So 100. What if I could do 100,000? And they're going to be like, ooh, Cody, dude, you're not even close. Well, there's my anchor price. But don't fear no. No is the beginning of all negotiation. Period. The end. Always don't, you never want somebody to say yes. What if I could do 120? Yes, I'll take it. Oh, I could have got it for lower, right? Yep. You never want to go. You want to go for no. No is the beginning of all negotiation. So I want to say something where they're like, nope, that's not going to work. Well, Jack, how close can you get to that number? And I just sit there. And we just start working it to where they're coming down on their price. I'm inching my way up. They're working their way down. I'm inching my way up. And that's how we call it a win-win. They got me up from 100. I got them down from 180. We ultimately get it at 120. And now this is hypothetical, but my point is you can't give them their price. You've got to anchor low and work your way up, and you've got to work them down until you can get it as low as possible. So there's no math. There's no equation to it. If you wanted to like a simple version of it, I'd say a good ballpark would be take your lowest prices of homes that have been sold, take 3 of them. So if you're in an area, pull it up and be like, okay, these are the 3 lowest sold prices. Add them together, divide it by 3. That's your average. Take that average times 0.8. So we're taking the lowest comps, not the highest comps. We're taking the lowest comps, and then we're going 80% of the lowest comps. That's a good ballpark.
Yeah, no, that's a good rule of thumb. You've brought this up multiple times here now. I think one of those exercises that people have to get ready for is being ready for silence and being willing to sit in that silence and letting them talk. Because my
team's great at this.
you really have to just kind of let it hang there.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks that I've learned recently is, well, not recently, I've been doing it for over a year now.
Yeah.
I've just gotten to the point where if I'm in those type of situations and it just isn't coming together, and we just basically, I'm almost on the way out the door and we're not getting anything signed, I'll stop and just say, just now that it's all over, how close did I get? And it typically reignites the conversation, and now I'm back into negotiation again.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. That's a fantastic one. In fact, I hope everyone's listening to that gold gem right there. I'd be writing that one down and using that today. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. So after they get it under contract, we're going to advertise it to our buyers list. Is there a way to market? Before that, I probably should say, should people be concerned about documentation? Like what should they use associated with getting this under contract?
Yeah. Yeah. I would make sure that you sit down with like your real estate attorney on any state, because every state's, that's the unique and probably the biggest problem with real estate is every state interprets real estate law completely different. I wish it was something I could say, man, it's so uniform. So no matter what, here's the contract you use. It's just not the truth. So even in California, Southern California and Northern California use two different contracts, and it's the same state. And they have different laws and how they interpret the laws. So I would always tell you, get with a license, like get with a real estate attorney, get one that's recommended by everyone. And I'd sit down and say, here's my goals. My goal is to simply put a home under contract and have the opportunity to just simply sell or assign the contract for a fee and then me be on my way. What's the legal way of doing that in my state? Now, there could be some states where they're like, man, that's going to be tough. You're going to have to actually buy the home first. It's okay. There's hard cash lenders that'll lend for one day and then turn around and sell it to the cash buyer. Some people allow you to just simply assign it. You never have to bring money to the closing. So yes, check with a licensed, I shouldn't say licensed, just a real estate attorney, and check with them. See if you can use like a version that isn't the real estate, like the Board of Realtors version for your state. If you can get away with something that's a simple 1-page, 2-page, awesome. That's going to be fantastic. If you have to use like the realtors, the Board of Realtors, ours is called the REPC, REPC, we call it Real Estate Purchase Contract. If you have to use the Board of Realtors contract, just make sure it's assignable. Utah's REPC or Utah's Real Estate Purchase Contract is not assignable. So now I'd have to add an addendum that allows it or makes it assignable. Okay.
Sure.
So I actually had an attorney draft up my own personal contract that I use. So those are the big things. If there's anything out there that I can tell you is every state's different. Check with the real estate attorney on what's the best way to do it, whether that's your own version of a contract, or if you have to use the state contract, great. Just make sure it's assignable. And if not, what's the addendum that you have to attach to make it assignable?
Sure. So we're going to start marketing it to our sellers. Like, what's the best way to handle that piece? And then secondly, what's the dollar amount for that assignment fee? Like, how much am I going to make?
Great question. Your buyers are going to determine that. So the lower you can get it, obviously the more you can make. Now, a lot of people think, oh man, you're making so much money on this seller. When reality is you can make a lot of money on the buyer too. So the reason why people could say, oh, we made $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000 on this deal, it's a mix of getting at a good price and finding a cash buyer that's willing to pay top dollar for it. That's the beauty of disposition. If you get that honed in, you can make great money in real estate. So what do? We market it out to our cash buyers. And let's say that same scenario, I get under contract at $100,000 on a $200,000 home when it's all fixed up. Mm-hmm. I'm at 50 cents on the dollar. There's going to be a ton of cash buyers that, I want it if I market the contract. Remember, I don't own the real estate, so I'm not marketing real estate. I'm not marketing the home. I'm marketing the contract that allows them to purchase the home at 123 Main Street. So if I market that at 160, now all your cash buyers are like, it's no longer a deal. So even though I got it under contract at a great price, I market it to them at too high of a price. So what I like to do, I'd rather just market it low and get a ton of people saying, I want it. So even though I know it's going to sell for, let's call it 130 to 145, I'm going to market the contract for 110, because what I want is I want 20 people saying, I want this deal. Why? Because it begins this feeding frenzy. They all go out to the property, they do the inspection, and they're like, I want this. And oh my gosh, Jack's here. We can't let him buy this home again. We've got to get this deal. This is ours. We're going to get this. So let's offer him 115. And then there's going to be other people like, I bet you this thing's going to go for like 130. So let's go in at 135. Now, this is all hypothetical talk, but I want the most eyes on this. And so you can market that contract at a lower price than what you think you're going to end up. Because all you're going to do is just say, hey, suggested price is 110. And then 10 people say, hey, I'm interested. Hey, there's a lot of people interested in, so just submit your highest and best by this date. Sure. And then we just move forward.
So that's an interesting way of doing it, because, you know, and it could be the culture or something that we're battling. But we've tried doing that a couple times, and it seems like we end up nobody brings their highest and best. You know, it's like somebody who they're slow to react or slow to submit what they'll pay for it, and then we end up selling it for what we marketed it for. I'm just wondering, maybe just lack of the population, or maybe our buyers list isn't as big as we need it to be.
So it depends. So we have 6,000 buyers at any given time that are getting marketed to. And so we have a lot of eyes looking at it. The more you get, the more interest, obviously, of people saying, yep, I want to come take a look at it. So that is definitely a big play. So I would ask the person that would have those kind of struggles, look at your cash buyers list. If it's just 100, 500, under 1,000, I'd be like, grow that baby, get that baby up. And make sure they're cash buyers. There's a lot of people that are not cash buyers that are on our list as well, and on many people's list. They just add yourself to the list. So that's the big thing. Make sure you have enough cash buyers. And then it's the training of the cash buyers at the beginning. Hey, I'm always going to send out the deals at the suggested price. And ultimately, if there's quite a bit of interest, we just ask the same of everyone. We'll never disclose anyone's offer. We'll never disclose anyone's price. We'll just ask that if there's a lot of offers, we'll just tell you, hey, we have a lot of interest. Just submit your highest and best. And then when it happens, it's like they've already had the conversation. Now this is actually reality. You're just living to what you told them before you added them to the list.
Sure. So let's say you've wholesaled the contract to somebody. Like, what's that next step then? When you hand it off to them, you just sign it over to them, or do you do?
So they take it to the title company. Whether you're a title closing state or an attorney closing state, doesn't matter. But essentially, your cash buyer is going to bring the difference. So if you put the home under contract at $100,000, and then let's say a cash buyer is willing to give $120,000. So what they'll do is the cash buyer will bring the $120,000 to the title company or to the closing attorney. They'll bring the full $120,000. The seller will get a check for $100,000, and then a check will be to me for the difference, the $20,000. And then I move on to the next deal.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then that's important to say too. Don't wait for one deal to finish while you're working on your next one. But
very true.
Very true. For some reason, that's another mindset thing that I've found interesting, that people seem to put all of their eggs into one deal basket. And then if something falls apart, they don't have anything else to go to. You know, so it's true. Just this, it's like they can only, it's one deal at a time or something. I'm not sure.
Closing is not, receiving the money and closing is not, that's a lagging measurement. It's not the breath of, it's not the oxygen of your business. Oxygen of your business is marketing and sales. If marketing and sales is not consistently happening, the lagging measurement of getting deals and closing and getting paid will never happen. And so you always got to work on the beginning measurements. What are the actions you have to take? Not the lagging results. I don't need the lagging measurements of what's going to pay me. Like, oh, I want to get paid today. No, well, what are you going to do today so you get paid consistently? It's always going to be marketing and sales. You've got to always have marketing going out every single week, not once a month. I'm a huge believer and a huge proponent of do not send out mail 1 week and then sit there for 3 weeks and work those leads and then send out another one 4 weeks from now. It's weekly. Marketing is going out weekly so that you have weekly conversations, weekly appointments, weekly offers, weekly contracts, weekly paydays.
Right. Now, I think that's probably a great point to start wrapping things up here.
Perfect.
But first of all, was there any question that you wish I would have asked that I missed here today?
If anything that I would say, maybe just maybe a ribbon to add is give everyone the power that you can do this. If I can do this, I didn't go to college. I wasn't an expert. Over time, I've gotten good at what I do. But at the beginning, I was so imperfect. Be willing to just take imperfect action. Don't build a perfect plan. Don't get stuck on YouTube University and just get into this analysis paralysis like Jack said earlier today. Just commit to knowing that you're going to make mistakes and it's okay. It's okay. Make mistakes, learn from them. You're either going to win or you're going to learn. You're never going to lose. The only way you lose is if you quit and give up. You're always going to win or you're always going to learn. But the only way that takes place is if you take action, and you can't wait for perfect action. It doesn't exist. Take imperfect action.
Sure. No, that's exactly. So I did write down a couple things that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted here. First of all, you mentioned that they better build that cash buyers list right off the bat.
Yep.
And focus on that before you start getting properties under contract. I can't echo that enough. That's so important. You found for your marketing efforts, direct mail and then online is probably the great way to kick things off. It's that persistent, consistent behavior that's going to pay off in the end. Takes 5 to 12 times of those touches in order to get somebody. So also that follow-up is a big piece of it. I really like that question, that you had when you were talking to sellers. Basically, why are you selling to me? Why are you responding to a 35-cent postcard? That was going to reveal a lot. We've got to get comfortable with that silence and get a little awkward sometimes. It's almost shocking what people will tell you that they won't even tell their families.
That's right.
So
100% true.
So Cody, I can't thank you enough. You've given me a ton of your time here tonight. If people want, we touch the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what you know and what you offer. Where would they find more information or just reach out and contact your team?
Yeah. So Cody Hofhine. So find me on social media, Cody Hofhine. Hofhine is spelled Hofhine. And then you can go to codyhofhine.com. That's where your guest, if they want a free script that kind of we just briefly touched on, they can get a free script from there. So there's a little button that says you want the free script. Click it, download it, get it, start using it, act upon it. Don't wait, don't get scared. And that's found at codyhofhine.com. Go get your free script, and hopefully that just helps people have some quality conversations with motivated sellers.
So no, I can't thank you enough, Cody. And we could have done another hour just talking about mindset sometime. So maybe you'd be open to that.
I'd love to. Mindset is crucial. I think Jim Rohn said it best. It's very rare or very seldom does a man's income exceed their level of personal development. That's pretty profound. So if you want to be a millionaire, have a millionaire mindset and watch the dollars follow.
Well, thank you again, Cody. I hope we can touch again.
All right. Take care, Jack. Thank you.
Thanks.